Hi, I'm Sharon. Welcome to my YouTube channel and welcome to my Theory Tuition series where I'll lead you step by step through the ABRSM Theory grades. And we're cracking on through ABRSM Grade 1, so you'll need your ABRSM Music Theory and Practice workbook for Grade 1. And you will also need some PDF sheets that I've made available. If you go to sharonbill.com, there are loads of resources available to help you there on my website. There are some free PDF information sheets that we'll be referring to frequently, which will accompany each step of this series. There's also a page which links to all of my YouTube video tutorials, and you can also access some information about the books that I have available. I have available How to Take Your ABRSM Music Theory Exam Guide, and it's full of tips and techniques of how to make the best use of your time in your exam experience. So now we are cracking on with Grade 1 Theory, and we're on to section I, which is all about dotted notes. Before we just begin in our workbook though, if you just pop back to your PDF download and refer back to sheet A, you will notice that I refer here to a dotted minim or a dotted half note, which is aptly named because it's a minim or a half note with a dot after it. So I've not really drawn attention to this yet, and we're now going to look at why those dots affect the time values. And so if you turn to page 12 in your ABRSM Music Workbook, and if I just draw letter I here to show that we're referring to section I. So if you also turn to your PDF download sheet I, and so we're going to be looking at dots. So you will need your pencil, a nice sharp pencil. I use a propelling pencil, and you will need an eraser as well because everybody makes mistakes. And so let's think about a dot after a note. It's specifically placed after a note. In music you can also have dots below or above a note, and they mean something entirely different, but when it follows after a note it's a timing issue. And a dot after a note makes it last half as long again. As such, a dot changes value depending upon which note precedes it. For example, here we've got a 2-beat note with a dot. So the 2-beat note is represented there. Half of 2 is 1. That's the dot allocation. So therefore, altogether, this makes 3 beats. Let's look at another application of a dot. So here we have a 1-beat note which has got a dot after it. So we have our 1-beat note, and then half of 1 is a half. That's our dot allocation, and therefore altogether this makes 1.5 beats. Let's look at that just working down into smaller values. And so we have a half beat note, we have a quaver or our 8th note, so that's worth half a beat. And so the dot after it is worth half of that, so half of a half is a quarter. Therefore, altogether, this makes 3/4 of a beat. If, like me, maths is not your strong point, I find it easier to just visualise there's a whole beat divided into quarters. And so we have half a beat, and then half of a half gives us our 3/4. I just find it easier to visualise it like that. And so if we move to our workbook, page 12, exercise 1, looking at how to apply that knowledge about dots, we've now got to answer this question: how long does each note last? Now I suggest that you perhaps just sketch this out. You can use a piece of scrap paper, or you can just sketch it on your workbook. You can always erase it later. And so it's asking for the relationship between these different notes now that dots are applied. We're looking at the time values and how they interact. So the one that they give us here, the example they give us, they've given us a dotted minim or a dotted half note, which is worth 3 crochet beats, and it's asking us it lasts as long as how many crochets, and we know that it lasts 3 crochet beats. However, if you find that hard to just hold in your head, if you just break it down, so we know there's our dotted half note or our dotted minim, we know that that will break down into 2 crochets or 2 quarter notes, and then half as much again gives us another one. So just break it down so that you can visualize how that works. Okay, so now I'll just work through this last one here, and then I shall leave you to try some on your own. So it's now asking us for the same note value. It's a dotted minim or a dotted half note, and they're saying it lasts as long as how many quavers or eighth notes. And so we can just extend this diagram a little bit further, because we know that each of these crotchets or quarter notes divides into quavers or half a beat eighth notes. And so we know that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 quavers will last the same time as a dotted minim, or 6 eighth notes will last for the same time as a dotted half note. So there's our answer. So you just sort of extrapolate the knowledge based upon what you know from your original starting point. Have a go at exercise 1 and just try those. Write in pencil, it doesn't matter if you make some mistakes. Press pause and then you can re-access into the video and I'll work through them with you. So I'm presuming that you've now had a little go on your own, and we'll have a look at these remaining questions. So it's saying a dotted crochet or a dotted quarter note lasts as long as how many quavers, or lasts as long as how many eighth notes. And so let's just think about that. Here is our dotted crochet, our dotted quarter note, and we know that the crochet, the quarter note, will break down into 2 quavers, and then half as much again gives us another quaver, and so we know that that answer is 3. And so 3 quavers or 3 eighth notes will last the same amount of time as a dotted crochet or a dotted quarter note. So this next one seems like a little bit of a trick question. A dotted crochet lasts as long as how many crochets? Or if you prefer, you could think of it, a dotted quarter note lasts as long as how many quarter notes? That seems a bit of a trick question really, but the answer is 1.5. It's just as simple, because it's 1 plus half as much again, and it's just as simple as that. Okay, so now it's asking us for a dotted quaver, and it lasts as long as how many semiquavers, or a dotted eighth note lasts as long as how many 16th notes. So let's just break that down in a diagram and have a look at that. So we know there's our dotted quaver, our dotted eighth note. So we know that that will break down into 2 semiquavers or 2 16th notes, and then half as much again gives us another 1. And so the answer is 3. Okay, now then here, we've already done most of the work for this question in a previous question. A dotted minim lasts as long as how many semiquavers? Or a dotted half note lasts as long as how many 16th notes? So here we've already done most of the thinking. We know that it lasts for as long as 6 quavers, or 6 16th notes, and so we've just got to break it down again, and we know it doubles, so each of one of those breaks down into 2 semiquavers, so we know that it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 semiquavers or 12 16th notes. There we go. You could also, the maths way, if you prefer not to do it in a diagram system, you could also think a dotted minim lasts as long as 3 crochets, or a dotted half note lasts as long as 3 quarter notes, and we know that there are 4 semiquavers to a crotchet. We know that there are 4 sixteenth notes to a quarter note, so really we just need to times that by 4, so 3 times 4 is 12. There's our answer if we want to just go at it the maths way. So that's the first part of this section. We'll look at the next part in the next video. If you find that you've made a couple of mistakes there, just rub it out and have another go and have a rethink. Don't just correct your answer, but sort of go back, listen to the video again and watch me work through it so you can just learn by your mistakes. I hope that's been helpful to you. I'm certainly enjoying working through this with you. I absolutely love studying music theory. Thanks for watching. Please do access those free PDF information sheets. We're going to be using those ad infinitum really. And if you go to Sharon Bill, all the information you need is there. sharonbill.com, and that's got loads of resources for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.